In 1976, something began happening in a small town in Ohio. Residents began receiving letters. Letters written by someone who seemed to know everyone's secrets. Affairs, arguments, family problems. The writer knew things that only a handful of people could possibly know. And whoever was sending them wasn't just watching from afar, they were very close. Because the letters didn't just accuse people of secrets, they threatened them. And the person at the centre of it all was a school bus driver named Mary Gillespie. For years, she would live under the watchful eye of someone who seemed to know her every move. Someone who would eventually build a trap designed to kill her. Someone who might have been sending letters, even while locked inside a prison cell. This is the story of the Circleville letters, and nearly 50 years later, no one knows who wrote them. Circleville is a small town in Pickaway County, Ohio. In the 1970s, the population was only around 12,000 people. It was the kind of place where everyone knew each other, the kind of place where gossip spread quickly. But in 1976, gossip was no longer enough, because residents began receiving anonymous letters in the mail. The letters were written in blocky handwriting and mailed without a return address. Inside were accusations, serious accusations. People were told they were having affairs. They were told secrets about their neighbours. Some letters threatened to expose scandals if their recipient didn't confess. But one person received more letters than anyone else, a local school bus driver named Mary Gillespie. The letter accused her of having an affair with the superintendent of schools, Gordon Massey. And this is what made the whole case even stranger. According to later reporting, the accusation may not have been entirely invented. Mary denied the affair for a long time, but later admitted she and Massey did become involved romantically, while insisting the relationship only began after her husband Ron's death. Whether the writer truly knew about a secret affair early on, guessed correctly, or helped create the very scandal they were obsessed with is still debated. And whoever was writing them seemed obsessed with Mary. The letters warned her to end the relationship, or else. At first Mary ignored them, but the letters didn't stop. They kept coming, week after week, month after month. And eventually, the writer started sending letters to Mary's family. Soon the letters were being sent to Mary's husband, Ron Gillespie. Ron was furious. The letters accused his wife of being unfaithful. They demanded that he do something about it. But the harassment didn't stop there. Other residents of Circleville began receiving letters as well. Teachers, local officials, neighbours. The letters exposed deeply personal details about their lives, things that were not publicly known. Some people believed the letter writer must be someone within the town government. Others believed it had to be someone who knew the families personally. But the scariest part was this. The writer seemed to be watching people. The letters referenced specific times and places, sometimes describing events that had happened only hours earlier. Someone was observing the town very closely. And then one night, the situation turned deadly. In August 1977, Mary Gillespie received a phone call. The caller claimed to be the person writing the letters. The conversation quickly turned heated. Mary's husband, Ron Gillespie, became enraged. He grabbed his gun and left the house. He told his family he was going to confront the letter writer. He drove off into the night, and that was the last time his family saw him alive. Later that night, Ron Gillespie's truck was found crashed into a tree. He was dead. Authorities ruled the crash an accident, but investigators noticed something strange. Ron had been holding a gun, and the gun had been fired once, but there was no bullet hole at the scene, no clear explanation for where the bullet went. Some people wondered if Ron had encountered the letter writer that night, but if he had, there was no evidence left behind. The letters stopped for a short time after Ron's death, but the silence didn't last. A year after Ron Gillespie died, new messages began appearing around Circleville, but these weren't letters. They were large signs posted along the roadside, and they were all aimed at Mary Gillespie. Drivers travelling along her bus route began noticing them. The signs accused her of having an affair. Some even mentioned her daughter. The messages were cruel and deeply personal. Mary tried to ignore them, but one day she decided she'd had enough. She stopped her bus and got out to remove one of the signs. What she discovered behind it was terrifying, because the sign wasn't a message, it was a trap. Hidden behind the sign was a .25 caliber handgun. The weapon had been rigged so that if someone pulled the sign away from the post, the gun would fire directly at them. It was a booby trap designed to kill whoever tried to remove the sign. Mary had unknowingly come within seconds of being shot. Police were called immediately, and when they examined the trap, they found something that would lead them to a suspect. The gun's serial number had been filed off, but investigators were able to partially restore it, and it traced back to a man named Paul Freshour. Paul Freshour was a factory worker in Circleville. He also happened to be Mary Gillespie's brother-in-law. Freshour admitted the gun belonged to him, but he insisted it had been stolen months earlier. Investigators also compared his handwriting to the letters. Some experts believed it matched. Others weren't convinced. Despite the uncertainty, Freshour was arrested. He was convicted of attempted murder for building the booby trap and sentenced to prison. For many people in Circleville, the mystery seemed solved. The letter writer had been caught. But then something happened that made the case even stranger, because after Freshour went to prison, the letters continued. Even with Paul Freshour behind bars, residents began receiving more anonymous letters. The handwriting looked the same, the tone was identical, and once again the letters mentioned personal secrets about people in town. At one point, Freshour himself received a letter in prison. It read, "Now, when are you going to believe you aren't going to find the writer?" The implication was chilling. Either someone else was writing the letters, or the real author had never been caught. Freshour insisted he was innocent. He claimed he had been framed, and he spent years trying to prove it. But the letters kept coming. To this day, no one knows who truly wrote the Circleville letters. Some believe Paul Freshour was guilty. They argue he simply had help on the outside. Others believe Freshour was innocent. They point out that the letters continued while he was locked in prison. Some investigators have suggested the writer may have been someone inside the school system, someone who had access to private information about families. Another theory suggests multiple people were involved, perhaps several residents working together. But the most disturbing possibility is this. The writer may have been someone extremely close to the victims, someone who saw them every day, someone who knew their secrets firsthand, someone who lived quietly among them, watching, listening, writing. The letters eventually stopped in the mid-1990s. No final message, no confession, just silence. Today, the case remains one of the strangest harassment campaigns in American history. Hundreds of letters, dozens of victims, one small town gripped by fear for years, and somewhere in the middle of it all, a person who knew far too much about the lives of others. The true identity of the Circleville letter writer has never been confirmed, and if they are still alive today, they may have spent decades knowing they got away with it. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the Circleville mystery, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. I cover strange disappearances, unsolved crimes, and mysteries that still haunt investigators today. And if you have a theory about who wrote the letters, leave it in the comments below, because sometimes the most disturbing part of a mystery is knowing the answer might still be out there, waiting to be discovered. Until next time.